All right, thank you for staying with Daybreak. Let's cross over straight to John Kagusha, who's in Mombasa. He's a Mkuruweni member of parliament to react to all these issues that we're talking about. Kagusha, we were talking about the pressure that this might cause to the government and the best way to deal with it when the time comes, because there are going to be nationwide rallies, tax resistance, and also there's one fundamental issue in the recreation of the IEBC. The Azimio team says it is not fair for the president to single-handedly reconstitute the IEBC. This is after the signing of the IEBC Amendment Bill 2022 into law.
Thank you, Trevor. And please, I think, try and balance the time so that even if I'm not in the studio, Jared doesn't take my time at all. Trevor, ignorance is a disease. Ignorance is a disease that sometimes is worse than terminal illnesses. If you look at the way my brother Jared argues his point as to how they have now discovered new evidence, you would be very surprised as to which Kenya Jared lives. And you will recall that the Supreme Court in 2017 said that the election will no longer be done at Bomas, it will no longer be done at IEBC. The election will be done at the polling center, and the results will be announced at the polling center. All the candidates will have their agents signing the results at the polling center, and that is where the election will end. And if you recall what we did this time round, all the agents signed the results at the polling center, and the results were put online and immediately were received at Bomas, where the agents were also seated. And then agents would come together with the election officials from the polling center to the county tallying center, and then these results would be collated together and then taken again to Bomas. And at Bomas, at every table, the officials there, including the agents, would go one form by one. Of course, they also had their own copies, and then they would go through the copies that were presented in the system and physically. And at that point, a decision would be made as to whether those election results are valid. And that happened bit by bit, polling center by polling center. And that is why it became very difficult at the Supreme Court to query the results as they were. And if you remember, at some point, the Azimio Brigade tried to bring the issue of Carmago, who they said is the one who was conducting or was stealing the election. And clearly, the Supreme Court dismissed that one as hot air. And the process they had called opaque was demonstrated clearly by the election officials and of course, the two sides, that it was not opaque at all because the process was open. The issue of opening a server does not arise at all. The Supreme Court made a ruling in 2017 guiding the change in the law so that we do not have a closed server anymore in coming elections. So an election now is as open as a book. And so when sometimes you listen to the argument that are being advanced by the Azimio Brigade, you can clearly see that these things are far-fetched. It's more than fiction. And that's why the resistance probably that has been discussed is not going to be coming from government. No, the resistance will come from wananchi themselves, because Kenyans are also tired. They can clearly see that the issue that is being propagated here and pushed has much more to do with selfish interest. It doesn't have to do with Kenyan interest. And I think the Azimio Brigade, they do not love Kenya. We have come from a system where the country was ravaged by a handshake, where the country's economy has been brought to its knees by the handshake system that was operating for 5 years. We have also come from a system, from a situation where we had COVID, which also ravaged this country. We have had drought, and now the Azimio Brigade want to come and add on the normal Mwananchi, on the common Mwananchi, another problem based on their resistance or their refusal to accept the legitimate government. and of course derailing the economy even further. I think many Kenyans will be able to resist this, because Kenyans now, what they want is a revival of the economy, because they are barely surviving. They have a challenge with the economy and they want the revival.
Yeah.
And they should allow His Excellency the President, the Kenya Kwanza government, to work hard to be able to revive the economy. Okay. And so I'm looking at this and I'm seeing there's a lot of ignorance that is being propagated here. And this ignorance, the people propagating this ignorance, they know they are doing that, but they're trying to hoodwink people. And you cannot take advantage of the openness of our constitution because it allows for demonstration and picketing. Then you should not take advantage of that to misuse the clauses in the constitution to mislead Kenyans. And I want to urge all Kenyans to kindly resist that kind of attempt to take them back to the road, to take them back to the streets, to take them back to picketing and to demonstrations. And you will be very surprised at some of the things that were said yesterday. I listened to the MC who talked yesterday, and he said that they are going to be marching to State House. And those who die will die. Those who will live will live. You can look at that carelessness that is coming from an elected leader. And I would wish he comes with his children and they lead that march to State House, or they lead the demonstrations and they are at the forefront of that. But what will happen? The gentleman will not even turn up or will be at the back. Look at my brother Jared. He was not at Kamukunji at all. He was not there. And he will not even go to Jakarta. And they are telling other Kenyans to go and die. I mean, Kenyans are not that naive. They know when they are being misled. Okay. They will resist that kind of misleading utterances. You saw how His Excellency the President was received in Nyanza recently when he went there. Clearly, these guys have been on record. Okay. I remember Babu Owino praising His Excellency the President and telling, man, you are a serious man. You are able to bring down a whole deep state, a whole system when we were doing this election. And can you imagine Jared sitting there telling you that His Excellency the President now, Ruto, did steal an election where the Raila Odinga was actually being propagated by the deep state, and they could even go to the rallies to pride themselves of the support they're having from the deep state and the systems. In fact, they could ask, how can the deep state be defeated in an election? And at some point, I remember the cabinet secretary then, Mushero, saying and assuring Raila Odinga that don't worry, we are in charge. We are working on the systems. Some of us are not talking a lot, but we are doing so much. And of course, you remember the uproar that we had at that particular time. I mean, these guys tried everything possible, even electing, or rather appointing 4 IBC officials to be on their side. And they thought it's going to be a game of numbers. They did not know that the numbers which were needed were the numbers on the ground. It's not the numbers in the boardroom. It's not the numbers in the IBC. And that's why this issue of election at the IBC must be stopped. I mean, we must stop talking about new discoveries at the IBC level. No, the election was not done at IBC. Okay. Any person claiming and pretending to be a whistleblower from IBC doesn't know what they're doing. The election was done at the polling station. Okay. And that is where we finished the election. Everything else is fiction, is hogwash. All right.
Let me bring in Jared Okello on reaction to this. I'll come to you, Gabriel, in just a bit. Let's switch gears and now talk about the IBC constitution now, because the IBC Amendment Bill 2022 has been signed into law. The Azimio team says this allows president to get his allies into office. What would you rather have, Jared? Because there was a petition in terms of the Parliamentary Service Commission having 4 people. Now it's just 2 people. What kind of amendments would you have wanted to see?
Well, I thank you very much. First, I was in Kamukunji, and I will be in Jacaranda. In fact, allow me to invite all Kenyans of goodwill to Jacaranda on Sunday, so that we can hear from Baba the next course of action. So he will be very disappointed. My friend keeps on saying Kenyans are wiser, that they will not, fall into machinations of politicians. Well, because they are wise, they attend our rallies. Those who do not attend are either because they are at work or they are committed elsewhere. But Kenyans are wise enough to know that Baba has the best direction for this country. Coming to the recomposition of IEBC, IEBC is at the heart of elections in this country, be it elections, be it referenda, that is the purview of IEBC. And I'm very afraid that since the advent of multi-party politics in this country, we've never gotten it right at the electoral umpire. That is usually where the rubber meets the road. And the Supreme Court of 2017 said as much. The results of 2007 elections that precipitated violence and thereafter a grand coalition government, all feed into the problems that we have at IEBC. Then there was the IIBC, that interim thing headed by Isaac Hassan, which was also bundled, just because of the same ineptitude that is exhibited by Chebukati and company. So we have never gotten it right at the IEBC. And that is not reason enough for us now to backtrack and say, let them run their business as they wish. Because that is what Kenya Kwanza is telling us. That, you are fond of making noises each time election does not go your way. Yes, election doesn't go our way because it is a compromised system. And we have adduced evidence. And for the first time, the Supreme Court in 2017, agreed with us, with the evidence that we presented. So, whereas we have not gotten it right, efforts to make it worse are also in the offing, courtesy of what we just saw with the Elections Act of 2022. Now, we did whatever we could under the circumstances as members of the opposition then, because there's no opposition now, because we don't recognize any government. So we said these laws should not be passed. What we need to do is to come to an agreement, an amicable agreement. And this has happened during the IPPG of the year 1997. My friend Madhuma must be aware, where political parties came together and agreed on structures of coming up with commissioners to shepherd the electoral process. So we had 4 commissioners who disagreed with Chebukati, and now they are being vindicated here. And because they feared the reprisals, some of them chose to resign. I wish they just stayed put and fight their way in through this tribunal and go to court all the way to the Supreme Court. Some people don't have the spine, the gravitas, the cajuns to fight. I wish they did. But suffice to say that the Parliamentary Service Commission is going to present individuals at that panel that will be recruiting new commissioners. Now, you look at what is happening at the Parliamentary Service Commission. The chair is the Speaker of the Parliamentary Service Commission. Now, the Speaker is none other than my friend, Honorable Moses Wetangula. When he will be recruiting or giving 2 slots to the commissioners, he will go for those who are aligned to William Samoei Ruto, whether you like it or not. Because that composition is Ruto. So you don't expect to see my friend, from Mombasa, this MP, lady friend of mine. So you don't expect to see her there. That will be totally different. You don't expect to see Omogeni being taken there. They will definitely take people who are aligned to them.
That is fair, but that's only 2 slots.
Yeah, then I go to the Public Service Commission, which also has 2 slots.
Yes.
Remember, last week, President Ruto met the entire commission of Public Service Commission. All along, Public Service Commission plays to the gallery. They are the appendages of the executive. So you don't expect them to present 2 commissioners who will be anti-Ruto's wish. So that is where the problem, those will be 4 people. So you have 2 from Parliament, 2 from Public Service Commission. Those are 4 out of 7.
Yeah.
Then you have 1 from LSK. LSK has since, been swallowed by the executive. It is not the LSK that we used to know under people like Madam Rachel Mammo or Isaac Okero or Tom Ojienda. This is now a toned-down law society of Kenya.
Yeah.
Then you also have the religious society, or maybe you may have, and just maybe, you may have a semblance of order within that one vote from the religious community. And then the Parliamentary Liaison Committee, which will also present one person. So look at it from whatever angle. Ruto has an undue advantage in getting the kind of caliber that he would want to have in the electoral umpire.
But this is what was passed by Parliament. What would you rather do then? Well,
we as the opposition objected, but you know numbers count in that house. Immediately, Ruto was announced by his friend Chebukati. He went on an overdrive to recruit members of parliament from Azimio to his side. And that is how they ended up getting the speaker. So he already has the numbers in the House, not by dint of his coalition, no. Just because he compromised some of them and crossed over to his side. But at the same time, he says, let the opposition carry out its cardinal responsibility. Which cardinal responsibility when you have gotten everybody to your side? So that is where the problem is. And that is what Baba is saying, that we have to relook into this composition. We have to relook the process of, getting the 7 commissioners. Well, it could be 6. I don't know whether Masiti is going to survive it, but seemingly she is, because what these guys are also saying at the tribunal led by Judge Mushelule, who was rejected by Uhuru Kenyatta, you remember, is that she exercised her democratic right under Article 32 and 33 to express dissent. And according to Chebukati and Ruto, expressing dissent, which is espoused in law, is a mistake. And therefore, all the 4 commissioners who just dissented, just like you dissented in a Supreme Court. We had, Judge Njoki Ndung'u and Judge J.B. Ojwang in 2017 dissenting. And no one subjected them to any kind of disorder. But now, because 4 commissioners dissented, now they have been bundled out of office. They are being taken through a rigorous process so that they can be jailed at the end of the day. I mean, what happened to Article 32 and 33?
But Muduma, does Jared Okello have a point when he says that this structure of the IBC Amendment Bill 2022 allows the president to get his allies into office, either directly or by proxy?
You know, first of all, let's get it right. I don't think there'll ever come a time where people will not point fingers at the president, and not only His Excellency President William Ruto, no, any other president sitting at that helm will always have fingers pointed at them. Because at the end of the day, this is a political process. And many people believe, myself and Mheshimiwa included, that the person who sits in the top echelon of governance, of government, has or will engage or entangle himself in certain selections. Truth be said, he may have desire for a particular process to go a particular way. That's a wishful thought. But when push comes to shove, I think the select committee, they really have their work cut out. We have seen, in this country, we have seen people who you would think they are aligned to a particular administration going the other way because of something called personal conviction. Is that what we are asking to come to play? I think that's what every taxpaying Kenyan would want. So it really does not augur well if we are going to demonize somebody because they are the head of state, thinking that they will interfere. I think, Mheshimiwa, we have a problem as Kenyans. In the back of our mind, we always think that a certain process will be interfered with by the forces that may be. And this is something, I don't know what to call it. It is something that we've always had in our back burner. But I think the difference between myself and Mheshimiwa, who is a politician, is because there are things that they will say, going to what he talked about Article 37 before I come back and to answer some of the things about IBC, because this, I think it's a conversation that we should have. Mheshimiwa, you may realize, meandered across the Articles 37, which actually are covered very well as in our Bill of Rights. It is a right for me to picket and demonstrate. It is a right guaranteed by the Constitution. But at the same time, there is bold prints of peaceful and unarmed. Mheshimiwa failed to mention those two words. And you realize why he did it. That is his political nature coming out. That is the political man himself. The minute those demonstrations, whether you're looking at picketing or whatever it is, the minute they are not unarmed or peaceful, by nature, by design, they go against the very article. Trevor, what do I mean? If you are doing your business and you're driving your new Mercedes-Benz that you got the other day from industrial area, you pass through Jacaranda and somebody stones your car. Yes, they can claim that they have a right. But Trevor, you also have a right to drive your beautiful Mercedes-Benz unperturbed. So I keep asking politicians, because they fail to tell us this, when or where do my rights stop and allow yours to go over mine?
Yeah.
We are actually tied to the same Constitution.
Okay.
It is the norm and the old adage of respect me and I respect you.
Okay.
We are all
Yeah.
swearing in allegiance to the same Constitution.
All right.
If it protects you
Yeah.
or protects Mheshimiwa, guess what? It protects me, my child, Mama X, Baba Z. We are all protected in the same Constitution.
Okay.
So I think as we talk about Articles 37 and the Bill of Rights and the picketing and the demonstration, let us always be mindful of peaceful and unarmed.
Okay, let me bring in Kagushi on this. Kagushi, on this issue of IBC, does it allow the president latitude or give him undue advantage to get his allies into the office? We know Public Service Commission has 2, Parliamentary Service Commission has 2, LSK 1, Interdenominational Council has 1, and Parliamentary Liaison Committee has 1. Does it give the president undue advantage?
No, it doesn't. And by the way, these our Azimio friends are now starting to sound like a baby lost or left in the market, and crying out loudly to anyone who is passing by to get help. And sometimes when the mother finds the baby, what they do is they take a stick and they cane the baby properly. Why did you get lost in the first place? So I think let us stop acting like cry babies every time. This process was recommended by, it is as a matter of the ruling of the Supreme Court and the guidance of the Supreme Court. And of course, the challenge has been that we had too many MPs in the mix, in the works. And for that reason, it was seen that members of parliament who are politicians are the ones who are picking these electoral body commissioners, and then the same member of the same parliament would come back later on and vet and approve the IBC commissioners. And by the way, I will be in the committee that will be vetting these commissioners when they are finally brought to the parliament as a JLAC. Now the JLAC that I'm sure my brother Jared wouldn't want to hear about at all. But we will be vetting them. So we will be very keen to ensure that we are getting people who have good quality, integrity, people who have the capacity, and people who are able to deliver for this country, because we love this country. And so the process has removed what we'd call the conflict of interest, or has removed that overlapping mandate by Parliament, by ensuring that we also bring on other players. I don't know at what point you dismiss LSK, my brother Jared, because LSK seems to be pro-Azimio in everything. You have seen them going to court at every moment. Whenever the president and the Kenya Kwanza government is making any decision, in fact, they have derailed most of the processes of the government. So you cannot say that then LSK all of a sudden now they have joined the executive. No, LSK has actually been seen to be anti-government in a very serious way. In fact, I know some of the people in government have not been very comfortable with the way LSK has, constantly and every time gone to court to derail the government processes through the court process. As we are talking now, the president has not been able to appoint the CASs. And then, of course, who has gone to court? And LSK has been in these processes for rather too long now. And so you can't say that they are part of government. No, they are not. So the president has a challenge with some of those bodies which are going to be picking the commissioners. But having said that, I want to say that we need to improve, and we need to continuously improve our electoral system, because that is what will determine eventually how the process is conducted or how the election is conducted. The commissioners, at the end of the day, must not have so much influence on the electoral process. They must not. And that is why you saw last time we had 3 commissioners on this side and 4 commissioners on this side, but they did not have influence of the process, and eventually that's why it was easy for the Supreme Court to have made a decision that it made. We must continue to reduce the influence of the commissioners, the influence of the chairman, the influence of the personalities in the process. That must continue to dwindle as we now propagate the systems and the processes to be strengthened so that it is clear that an election, in fact, ends at the polling center. So what we must do is to ensure that we have good agents. And many people have said in the past that a good election, or an election, is as good as the agent. Your candidature will be as good as its own agent. So what we must do is to get good, loyal, and faithful agents into the polling centers. And that way you reduce the influence and the impact of any commissioner, because the commissioners will not come to vote at the polling center. Commissioners will not even determine how many people vote there. Commissioners will not sign that form. And so what is important is to have good agents. So I do not think the president in any way, Trevor, is going to have undue influence on this process, is going to have a due advantage in this process. And remember, the process we are talking about here is a process that has been taken through the due process all the way from public participation to parliament. And members of parliament here were there when this amendment was taken through. And I remember when last week this process was taken to the Senate, I remember only about 7 senators dissented or had a different opinion from the rest. And you can tell clearly, senators could see that the process is clear, it's above board. This selection panel is going to work, objectively. Yeah. And that is why only a few senators had a problem with this system, or with the process, or with that panel. And so let us be truthful. Okay. Let us be forthright. We have a law. Yeah. We have our constitution. We have our legislation. We can't be selective with how we apply it. Okay. That when it favors you to go to the demonstration, you talk about the constitution. But when it guides you on the process, how to pick the commissioners, then at that point you claim it is favoring one side. And yet it's our law. So we must, all of us, subject ourselves to the sovereignty of our constitution and also public participation. Article 10 of our constitution actually talks about public participation, accountability, transparency. We have taken these processes through that public participation aspect, and the members of the public seem to agree that that panel and that process will be more enhanced, will be more capacitated if it is given or it is taken through the process that now has been taken or has been picked. So let me assure Kenyans that at the JLAC, and JLAC, that's where we have all the senior politicians from both Kenya Kwanza and from Azimio. We have, of course, likes of Kagusha, myself here. You have the chairman, Muragara there. You have likes of Atende Omolo. You have, I mean, all the senior politicians and lawyers from both sides are in this committee. And I know we have the capacity to interrogate the commissioners who will be sent to be vetted.
Okay.
And we will not allow any commissioner whom we think have no integrity, any commissioner whom we think can plunge our country into troubles, into problems, we will not allow.
Okay.
Because we are very patriotic and we want a commission that is going to help our country to rise above the levels that we have been before. We can't be going back. We will be progressing ahead. We are patriotic Kenyans, and we want to see the best out of this country.
All right. Let me see what you're saying online here. Trevor Mbija at Citizen TV Kenya used the hashtag Daybreak. Let's bring that up on screen and see what you're saying as we take on closing remarks shortly, because the time is almost up on this conversation on State of the Nation. We'll be talking about the push by Raila Odinga on the different aspects of it all. Let's see what you're saying there. That is Evans Wanyela. The game plan of Raila Odinga is so predictable that everybody knows that what Raila wants is nothing other than power sharing with President Ruto. All right, Engineer Lazaro says the work of opposition isn't to clap for the government. Honorable Kagusha, being with the divergent opinions doesn't mean you want power sharing with anyone. Let's debate with decorum. Okay. Amaganga Mustafa says Raila is not the common job seekers we see in politics whom they contest for jobs to get money for next elections. He's a stable political mogul with the capacity and means. Handshake shouts doesn't make sense. Okay. Godi Baraza says the debate surrounding the process of constituting the IEBC Commission can be left to be as independent as it can be. Any political interference will only lead us into another post-election wrangling, hence the development stagnation. Okay. Agumba Steve says, in as much as we may feel Azimio is against IEBC, we need to look at the long-term effects of the IEBC Act. Reducing a poll body to one-man affair rules out the independence of this constitutional office. Let's stop psychophancy to save the future. Dr. Goa Moja says that the entitlement to participate in the civil and political life of society and the state without discrimination or repression is what Kenyans want, despite the political sides. Okay? The Economic says, I agree with Honorable Jared Okello on composition of the committee selecting IEBC commissioners. The executive has an upper hand in the list: PSC, Public Service Commissioners, and Religious Society. Okay. Okello Mwalimu again says, whether or not Azimio bigwigs are right about the general election results, there's need for national conversation on how independent constitutional offices like IEBC operate. Process of appointing holders of such offices should be as political as possible. All right. All right. Let's cross over back before I come to you, Gabriel Muduma, on closing remarks to Kagusha, who's in Mombasa now. There's been a little bit of drama there on CDF. Has that been sorted out now, Kagusha? Are you now a happy lot? Because some people say you are holding the government at ransom.
I don't know what that would mean, but people
you went on strike,
that,
right?
Members of Parliament represent the public, and what we have done in this case is that we have exercised our representation mandate that we must represent the public. And what does the public want? Today, as we talk, many parents have approached me. They have a challenge taking their children back to school. I have no answer to them because the government has not released resources, and everyone understands that I do not have money of my own to take children to school. And so I represent these voices in government, and that is why we have pressured government to ensure that they release the money for bursary. This money for bursary is not for members of parliament. It's not for their use. It is for the public. And we are happy because the government has listened and they have started releasing the money. And the bone of contention, as you may understand, is that there is a promise that the Cabinet Secretary for Treasury had done to Parliament sometime in November, I think early December. That promise was not kept, and so and no explanation had been given and we thought also the Cabinet Secretary for Treasury could actually be taking us for granted and could be taking the children of this country for granted. And we have reminded him that we gave him that job, and he must do it. If he does not do it, then he will meet the true face of Parliament, which is there to oversight the work that he's doing. Right. And we have worked together in synchrony as members of Parliament without looking at the political divide, without looking at the political side. We have all put our voice together, and we have put our foot down. Now, we have some consensus now because some money was sent. Definitely this money is not sufficient, but we believe if the promise, the new promise that the Treasury Cabinet Secretary has given, that he's going to release another 2 billion next week, and he will release another 2 billion the other week, if that is done, then we will have some level of leverage. We'll be able to help our children go to school. Okay. So in about 1-2 weeks, the children should be okay. So yes, we have some kind of a compromise now on this particular issue. But may I also take time, Trevor, may I also take time to pass my condolences to the Professor Magoha's family. Okay. And wish them well and peace, and of course celebrate his life, especially when it comes to how he conducted or how he brought about the issue of transition from 844 to CBC. And also for being a scholar that he has been and a medical doctor. We will remember him as a country for being a true servant of Kenya.
All right. Honorable Kelo, on this one, I am sure you both agree on the CDF agenda.
Well,
when it comes to money, the politicians don't disagree.
Well, thank you very much. I am not in Mombasa. I am seated in studio in Nairobi. And I just arrived from the village yesterday.
Are you going to Mombasa?
And the reason is simple. We had an undertaking from the CES Treasury from the 9th of December, just a few days before we went out for recess, that every week he was going to deposit to the CDF board account 2 billion shillings every week. This is the 7th week, which therefore should be having like 14 billion shillings in that account, translating to about 55 million per constituency. 55 million. Now, my budget for bursary alone in my constituency is 60 million, meaning everybody who applies gets, and I usually get about 15,000 applicants from high school, tertiary to universities. Up to now, the money that has so far been sent out of 14 billion is only 2 billion shillings, meaning therefore that the CES walked back very deliberately so on the promise that he made to members of parliament. And now they are telling us to go to Mombasa for an induction. And as we swim in the evening, we talk about nothing. I can't do that. Let me mourn with the people that I represent. Some of them are still stuck in the villages up to now, whereas schools were reopened on Monday. So if they want to put us through some charade, a process that is not beneficial to the people that we represent, I ignore. So I'm not going to Mombasa. I want to be with the people that I represent. And if this is my last word, because I know your time is really running out, I did say that even as we demonstrate, because demonstration we shall, we need police escort so that there is adequate protection of Trevor Mbija's new Mercedes-Benz. That is the work of the police. That's not the work of demonstrators. Then the JLAC, he has said, my friend Kagusha has said, JLAC will at the end of the day sanitize President Ruto's nominees into IEBC. You know, and that is exactly what they do. They just sanitize. We had very credible information touching on some of the CSS who are now serving Ruto's cabinet. And we said these are very serious matters of law in a court of law. And therefore, their appointment can be stopped until such a time that they are cleared. You know that if any matter touches on any person within the executive, you are expected to step aside. Pending investigations, remember you've not been penalized, but you have to step aside, including governors. But here are people whose cases are before a court of law and were taken through departmental committees in parliament. And by the way, those departmental committees only process what the president wants. And that is how some of these ESs are in office up to now. So telling me that JLAC will look at the integrity of this individual, that's hogwash. They will shepherd, process, and appoint people who will be nominated by Ruto. The US elections of 2020 are still under review to date. You remember, loads of evidence were gotten from former President Trump's home, and they are now being processed by Department of Justice so that they can take him to a court of law. This is an election that happened in 2020. But somebody is telling me that an election that was stolen in August last year should not be looked into. I mean, this is how Africa has gotten everything wrong. Okay. 2020 election is being scrutinized. 2022, I'm being told, no, that's too long ago. You could have gone to Supreme Court. Move ahead. Ahead where? We must get everything correct. If IEBC is efficient, then what's the work of agents? Yeah. Because we are told election is as good as agents. Why should I have agents when I have IEBC to control and do the election? I should just be at home waiting for my announcement. Not about agent. Agent means that IEBC is out to be compromised the way they did compromise Chebukati and company at Bomas of Kenya, and that they're not going to do a good work. Okay. So you are told, go and have people looking at how the electoral process is happening. Okay. I mean, what a sham.
Gabriel. Very quickly, I'll talk about the CDF. First of all, I think it's a great thing that, some money has been disbursed. And, I know Mheshimiwa will have a good smile probably later this week. And I'm just praying that all this money can be disbursed. Mheshimiwa is right that the majority of what is disbursed usually goes to bursaries. But from a governance point of view, I think, Mheshimiwa, there need to be better collaboration between the constituency and the county government. And yes, it is good for the bursaries, but I think, Mheshimiwa, it's a high time we started looking at the dilapidated infrastructure of our schools, the classrooms. Sometimes, Trevor, when you go to schools which were the highlights of the yesteryears, you can actually break down because of how they become dilapidated and what have you. So mine, it would be to encourage that as Mheshimiwa goes around, they need to bring in the governors. They need to set up some serious amount to look mainly into the infrastructure. Coming to, the realization of what we have seen about the select committee in IEBC, I think we need to have faith and continue to build on better, Mheshimiwa. All of us. Here we are talking about just the select committee. We've not started the interviews. And yet you can see already people are up in arms. Why can we not have that fervent belief that people can actually do the right thing and actually put Kenya first? And I fervently hold on to the view that we are heading in the right direction. Okay. All we need to do is for people to live up to the true meaning of what they believe within their conscience, to be right morally, and most importantly, legally. But morally, I think that is the takeaway, that we need to just do the right things and be morally responsible, not to politicians, but to the Kenyan people who have entrusted them and us and everybody else with that particular power of being called a leader.
All right, before we wind up, let me bring in Kagusha. JLAC was adversely mentioned, so we'll give you the right of response to Honorable Kelo.
They are all good.
To Trevor, two things. Number one, it's wrong for Mheshimiwa to say that he did not come to Mombasa because it's wrong for Mheshimiwa to say that he did not come to Mombasa because he had a problem with the fact that there was no money. He need to know that members came to Mombasa and they took that time to represent their people and agitated for CDF to be released. How does Mheshimiwa feel that when other members of parliament were agitating for CDF money to be released, he was not there and he was not representing his people. And I think Mheshimiwa Jared in future will need to be where members are agitating, where members are pushing, and where they are representing their people. Because one of the reasons why he's elected is to represent his people. I have spent the whole of Christmas and January in Mashinani with my people, and when it came to the time where I was supposed to go and push their agenda in bursary and such, I was there, I was present. And so it's not right to belittle other members of parliament who may have gone ahead to represent their people where it mattered most. In Mombasa, we did not come to swim, we did not come to have dinner, we came for induction. As myself, as a first-time member of parliament, needed that induction a lot. And of course, I would have to attend where it is being conducted. And of course, agitate for my members. And I'm happy that now we have been able to deliver that. On the issue of JLAC is not going to be shepherding, neither is it going to be cleansing the process. The JLAC is a serious committee of parliament, and Jared must stop misinforming Kenyans. He must remember that JLAC has a composition of half-half. It has 7 members of parliament from this side and 7 members of parliament from this side. And as I said, every political coalition picked its best lawyers and put them in that committee. We have people like Atende Omolo in that committee. We have people like TJ Kajwang in that committee, as much as we also have the other members like Mheshimiwa Mureu from Gatanga on this other side. And we have all the members of parliament from both sides who will be looking at that process. And so JLAC will be seriously interrogating. We will interrogate very seriously, just like we have done here in Mombasa. We have not sided with government because we are in government. No, we have oversighted the government. In fact, at some point, we said we are going to take serious actions against the cabinet secretary in charge of treasury. And so we are a serious parliament. We are doing our work seriously. And we want to ensure that we are objective, we are above board, and that we represent the interest of Kenyans at every particular moment. And we are not going to be representing the interest of government in parliament. No, we are seriously pushing government to ensure that it delivers for the people. Because if the government does not deliver, we don't deliver. So we must all work together. And that's why I would want to ask my brother to respect the institutions of parliament where he is serving. And of course, know that just as he does in his committee, the same way, his members of parliament from Azimio who are in JLAC will not be seated there processing names for the president. No, they will be interrogating the process.
All right. We have to leave it there, gentlemen. Thank you so much for making time. Honorable Jared Okelo Nyando, Member of Parliament, Honorable John Kagusha Mkurueni, Member of Parliament, and Gabriel Muduma, Political and Communication Strategist. That has been the State of the Nation. Bye for now. My name is Trevor Mbija. But coming up next is Cooking Tips. All right. See you in a bit.